Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Vanessa Obura, and this is Let's Talk Marketing. Today, I am very pleased to announce that I have a special guest who is joining me. I'm pretty much sure that most of you know him. He's done amazing things for the industry. He's transformed businesses, and he's still transforming and making a difference. So today, my special guest is Moses Kemibaru. Moses is the CEO and founder of Savvy. So today, welcome, Moses. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for coming to our show.
Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm delighted to have an opportunity to have a conversation with you to talk about so many interesting things between the convergence of marketing and technology.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really, really grateful to have you here because you've been on the field for quite some time. You're pretty much experienced, especially in the region. And our show basically is to talk and to bring basically awareness to our audience when it comes to issues relating to marketing and technology. So it's also known as MarTech, but I wanted you being on the field on a day-to-day basis. Where do you think MarTech is in the region? Where do you think we are with marketing and technology?
Thank you, Vanessa. So I think for me, this is a topic that's very close to my heart because I've been working in this space for probably the last 2 decades and seen kind of like the gradual transitions between, marketing online and using technology for marketing from its very earliest days. What I would say from my perspective is that given that we're in the middle of a pandemic and that we've had a scenario where many organizations have had to adopt a digital first model of doing things, including marketing, I would say that probably the last year has probably been the most exciting period for us as practitioners, specifically coming from a digital marketing standpoint and also leveraging technology to sort of understand how marketing works on a day-to-day basis. Reason being that as organizations could not really utilize some of the more traditional platforms for the period of time that we've been in this pandemic, they more or less doubled down on digital platforms and digital practices when it comes to marketing. And this means that we've seen an accelerated adoption. We've seen organizations become much more efficient and much more prioritized around platforms like digital. And what I love about it the most is that, done right, you're able to achieve a much higher efficiencies and a much better return on investment compared to some of the more traditional platforms. But the truth of the matter is that except for the organizations that are either aligned to being part of a global collective in terms of subsidiaries and branches of global businesses, many of our local homegrown enterprises are still very much in the early days of leveraging technology for marketing. And this is everything from things such as marketing automation, customer relationship management, how to efficiently run things like digital advertising and digital content, things like content management systems that then would give you a repository and a more streamlined way of managing your content flow, things like social media management platforms, analytics, where you can start to really analyze and understand customer sentiment and how your campaigns are performing. We are still, in my opinion, very much in the early stages of that adoption curve. And I think the next 2 to 5 years are going to be very instructive in terms of massive transitions, in terms of how we're going to start using marketing and technology together in a more efficient way.
Do you think we were having a conversation and you told me one thing that, caught my attention. You said, as a marketer, am I ready to unlearn what I know about marketing and to basically go back and relearn everything about marketing? So do you think marketers in the region understand this ideology of marketing and technology? Do you think they understand that technology is going to be important, in part of their work? They're going to have to learn to adopt. Do you think marketers in the region are there yet?
I think we're seeing a great deal of transition. So another hat I wear is I'm also a digital trainer, meaning that I work with organizations either on in-house training or I work with various institutions and organizations that sort of trying to bring marketers up to speed and equip them with digital marketing capabilities. For me, I think what's really exciting right now is that you're definitely seeing a great deal of interest and curiosity. Many people are starting to kind of invest in the courses and programs to learn more about digital marketing and how to use marketing within what I'd call a digital world. And definitely for sure, there's a major shift happening even right now where everyone has now realized this transition is happening, especially because of the pandemic. And due to that, people are now acquiring the skills and the capabilities. However, again, in the adoption curve and actually sort of rolling out those capabilities, I feel that many of the marketing practitioners are kind of coming in at more of a strategic level, whereas I believe they need to now start becoming practitioners. They need to actually understand how the platform works, how the technology works, how to use things like analytics, how do you start measuring and understanding how campaigns are working, how do you optimize them. And I think a lot of that stuff really requires you to go into technical spaces, which sometimes marketers are a bit shy of doing so. So my recommendation and what I see that is kind of a critical thing that needs to happen is I think many of our traditional marketers need to stop being intimidated or scared by what digital and digital platforms entail within a marketing context and seeing how to use that technology to be more effective in what they do. Because again, the elements of accountability, the elements of being able to use a data-driven model to optimize and maximize your digital campaigns and digital models becomes very, very critical for marketing, especially now when you think about the fact that consumers are now consuming much more content on their mobile devices through the internet than any other device out there, more than TV, more than radio, more than many of these traditional platforms. So we are still, again, in the early days. There is that growth and adoption happening, but I think the marketing professionals need to get into the technical elements of it. If you're not going to be able to get into the technical elements, you can't understand how it works. If you don't understand how it works, then you can't fully leverage or utilize those platforms.
Okay. When we were discussing, one of the things, you gave me an example of, the mistake that marketers are actually even currently doing is they're using, methods or systems that they had been using for a while. And for them, they think it works. But, you were asking me, you were telling me, does it really work? Do you actually have the data to prove that what the strategy you're using is actually working and effective? And to add to what you said, I believe marketers tend to not probably understand that we cannot act in a blind eye. Would you say most marketers are making the mistake because we're using the same strategies, we're not getting deep into what actually is happening on the back end? Do you think that's what is currently happening with most organizations?
I think so. I think there's a lot of nostalgia for the things that are familiar to you. So when you think about a marketer in a market where traditionally they've always gone towards radio and TV and print because that's what's familiar. So a lot of the practices and the methodologies on those platforms are things that they've sort of done maybe for the last 20 years, and they have a strong sense of understanding and the things that they know about those platforms. However, if you think about where the consumer behavior has gone, it's really pretty much gone to a digital first context. And again, you can't use, I think there's a famous saying, you can't use old maps to find new routes. You need to kind of re-equip yourself and acquire the skills and the insights to now start leveraging these new platforms and mediums of engaging customers through marketing, and technology is at the heart of it. Yeah, you can't do any of this stuff without fully understanding how the technology works. So I think there's an element of nostalgia to the traditional and the past. And I think very, very quickly, organizations are starting to realize that the people leading the marketing function need to have solid roots in understanding how the tech works so that they can actually then fully leverage those platforms. I think you're going to see a scenario where marketing leaders are going to start equipping themselves with the skills and also building teams that understand these technologies so that they can then get the full value and the full potential of using marketing within a sort of a technology context.
Thank you, Moses, for that. But we're going on a short break and we'll be right back. And we are back with Moses. And thank you so much for joining us as we continue this session. Moses, I'd like to now ask you my next question. We all know that marketers, have been using the social media tool as a strategy for their marketing. And I would like to ask, as a practitioner in the field and an expert, do you think in 2021 this is still going to be an effective tool for marketing? And where do you see social media playing a role in future with the way the dynamics of products and services changing? Where do you think in the future, let's say in 2-3 years, social media as a tool is going to be?
I think for me, when you think about social media in the context of Kenya and globally, I think right now we can almost authoritatively say that these technologies have been around, many of them for almost 10 years, around 10 years. They've now become mature platforms. In Kenya, we've done our numbers and we estimate that somewhere in the region of 20, 25 million people are on social media. And of course, the biggest one of those is Facebook, probably followed by the likes of Twitter. Then you have other platforms like Instagram and so forth. So I think the state of social media is, I think, well established that is where we spend a disproportionately large amount of our time consuming and creating content within Kenya and East Africa, for that matter, and across the continent. What I think is interesting is that going forward and due to the pandemic, a lot more organizations and businesses have started prioritizing these platforms because they realize that is where the majority of conversations are happening. Consumers are giving them value feedback. They're able to measure and analyze the performance of the activities in marketing terms. It is also very cost effective relative to traditional media in terms of what you would pay for visibility there versus similar visibility on a traditional media platform. And I think ultimately, it's just a reflection of the fact that we are spending more and more time on these platforms than ever before. We therefore are seeing that, if anything, in the next 2 to 5 years, organizations are going to spend more time on social media. Consumers are going to be doing more things there. The capabilities of the platforms are evolving. We're seeing platforms like Facebook now have an e-commerce capability. You can open a shop. The other iteration of changes that we're seeing is that with the onset of TikTok, that different formats and different types of social media are now sort of cross-pollinating features and functionalities across the board. So the nature and what you actually can do on the platforms is evolving each and every day. Going forward, and I think the thing that we need to start paying attention to is, I think there's a platform today called Clubhouse, which is an audio-only social media. And their format is basically that of almost a meeting room where you just show up and have a conversation, listen to speakers. It's exploding. And recently, Twitter launched something called Twitter Spaces, yet another format that's quite similar to Clubhouse. And pretty much every platform is going to do the same. But going forward, what cannot be denied is that consumers will spend more time on these platforms. The formats will evolve and change. Audio seems to be becoming a very significant part of social media, including podcasts. And I think going forward that we're going to just see more and more formats, more and more iterations of what social media actually is. But there's no denying that consumers will continue spending more time in these areas. And as businesses and marketers, we need to start thinking about how to reach them and create content that's going to resonate and ultimately have a bottom line impact for the businesses that need to engage with these consumers.
Okay. Now, you, like pretty much what we've been discussing today, you've been talking about how you think technology, the people in the tech department actually, and in the marketing department, somehow will have to figure out a way on how to work together. So why do you think currently, especially in the region, there's a gap in that capacity? Why is there a gap? Why don't departments, both departments, why don't they understand that they definitely are going to need each other to work together? And do you think it's going to be possible where they're going to be in agreement, where they're going to understand each other's needs? Do you see organizations implementing strategies?
Yeah, I think when you think about MarTech or marketing technology, fundamentally it's about building in the technology into the technology stack that exists within the enterprise or the organization so that it enables marketing functions, right? So just like the way you have technology support HR, technology support procurement or supply chain, marketing now also needs its own technology stack to execute its functions effectively and also provide a clear sense of accountability for what is working and not working. So traditionally, I think technology and marketing sometimes have been seen almost as competitors. I remember the early days of web design where the IT people thought the website is ours, and then marketers would say no, it's a communication platform, therefore it should be marketing. I think that perception has increasingly shifted, where the technology is now realized that the marketers are responsible for comms, and the website is a communication platform but enabled through technology. And I think increasingly, as marketers and other communicators in the organization need to use platforms like social media, email marketing, any kind of digital kind of marketing platform, technology or the technologies within the organization and that function of ICT is going to be critical to enabling that capability. So I think IT becomes critical in terms of helping them determine the best platforms, understanding their needs, doing the user acceptance testing so that they know what is most appropriate or needed by marketing, and then enabling the technologies that are going to allow them to do a more effective, more transparent, more impactful job from a marketing standpoint. So like I said, the silos have existed for the longest, but I think there's a clear understanding that the two now need to work closer together, and that ultimately, technology is a key enabler of marketing in the modern context of what I'd call a digitally led consumer world. So that transition and that change is already happening, and I think it's going to accelerate in the next few years.
Okay. Thank you very much, Moses, for joining us today. Your insights are very insightful, and I'm looking forward to host you again very soon on our show, because I'm pretty much sure many people will have questions for you. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more information, and to comment on the comment section if you have any questions regarding the topic we discussed today. Remember, this is Let's Talk Marketing, and I'm your host, Vanessa Obura.